I've noticed a trend last year where a ton of YouTubers would make videos about Flash games, since browsers were no longer going to be supporting Flash at the end of the year. And I was debating on how I want to approach this topic myself, because I kinda grew up with Flash games as well, and I have a lot of nostalgia for them. At first, my idea was to do a series of Let's Plays of various Flash games I either played a lot as a kid or have always wanted to try. It was basically a Let's Play marathon, and I recorded so much backlog for it that episodes bled well into 2021. Whoops. The last game I played was Pixelotl by Scott Culp, a game that I really wish was more popular than it was because it's a fantastic puzzle platform with a really cute art style. I thought those were all the rage in 2010. Well, regardless, on the final days of 2020, I recorded the last of the Flash games I wanted to do for the playthrough, or marathon thing, and I closed OBS and took a deep breath, and then went to schedule the uploads for all of the Flash games on the following and final day of the year. Let me tell you, it was great to finally see 2020 come to a close, but as the final hours ticked by, I couldn't help but feel that we had one last tragedy of the year. Okay, well, I know that's a bit hyperbolic. I know at the end of the day, not being able to play some browser games is quite a first world problem, but a lot of these games are history. People got into game dev with these things. It was some of their first exposures to the internet. People made lifelong friends over them, got their start on YouTube. It was a very experimental Wild West kind of time, and I feel the distribution of Flash games was one big part of what made the era so nostalgic. It also really bothered me from a game preservation perspective, since that's something I do take kind of seriously. I mean, who knows, perhaps Let's Plays will become the only way for future generations to experience what is essentially now lost media. I was on Twitter a day later, and that's when I kind of discovered something. Flashpoint. I have never heard of this thing until now, but looking on the site, it appears to be a bit of an archival tool for old Flash projects. Basically how it works is the software lets you browse this grand library of over 75,000 projects, documented by about 100 contributors. You select what you want to play, and then it will then temporarily download the assets for it so you can play it on your computer. I'm no tech expert when it comes to this kind of thing, but as far as I understand, that's how it works. It's been in the works since 2018, so I'm surprised I'd never heard of it, although I'm super glad some folks smarter than me have been working on something like this, because like I said, I'm big on game preservation. Something about Flashpoint, however, just seemed a little too good to be true though, so I cautiously downloaded it, and was surprised by just how well it worked and how robust the library was. In fact, almost every single game I played during my marathon is on here. Level Up, Jack Smith, This Is the Only Level, Tentacle Wars and its sequel, Crumble and its sequel, Super Smash Flash, Cursed Treasure 1, 2 and its level pack, Random Defense, all 6 Sushi Cat games, and yes, there were 6 of them, Drop Dead 3, Civaballs 1, 2 and its Christmas-themed level pack, Clowning Around, Pixel Basher, all 3 The Game games, Coming Out Simulator, Johnny Upgrade, Phage War and its sequel, all 3 Run games, Sugar Sugar, One Chance, Swords and Sandals 2, Puzzling War, Chaos Faction 2, Attack of the Heavenly Bats, Pixiva the Fountain, all 3 Fuzzy McFlufferstein games, Rayquest, Bloody Fun Day, and of course, Pixelotl. Good old Pixelotl. In fact, the only game I wasn't able to find in Flashpoint that I LP'd was The Fall, which is honestly a game I hated the most out of everything I played. In fact, I think it's the only game I hated out of all the ones I played. There's a weird story behind why I played that one, but it's still weird to not see it there after it had everything else I looked up. I also looked through their animations too, and I couldn't help but notice that Bowser's Kingdom wasn't on there. That was a Flash animation, right? Does anyone else remember that series? I think it's still on YouTube at least. It probably hasn't aged that well given how old it is, but it did introduce Steve the Piranha Plant, who is a character I love to this day. I mean, heck, he's even my secondary in Smash Brothers.
Hi, guys! Hi, Steve.
We're getting off topic, though. So, I was playing around with the software when I noticed this little option on the launch page. Random Picks. Basically, hitting this little button here will have the software pick 5 random projects from across its entire library. And that's when the concept of this video came to mind. Basically what I'm going to do is use this little feature to select a number of random Flash games, at which point I'll play them and basically document my experiences. I made a video kinda similar to this a while back about RPG Maker projects, and that was both super fun to make and was received pretty well, so this should be a lot of fun too. Let's get started. So the first game the button chose was the One Fork Restaurant. Looking it up, it appears there are 2 versions of it, and despite not being technically what was chosen, I'm going to go ahead and play the more recent DX version. I'll make little rules like this as we go along in this marathon if I have to, but I promise I'll try not to break the spirit of this video too much. So you might assume by the name that this is a food prep game like Papa Louie or something, but it's actually a score-attacky time management game. You're a restaurant that only has 1 fork, so the premise of the game is that you need to toss the fork around the room so each customer can finish their meal. I'm not quite sure if that's sanitary, but it gets pretty hectic because if a customer goes without a fork for too long, they'll get impatient and throw their food at you. Basically a game over. It's pretty fun overall, even for how simple it is. I think it was made for like a London Dare project, or however you pronounce that. I ended up playing all the main levels and unlocking the Score Attack Endless mode, which I eventually landed on a high score of 1025 with. Pretty cool overall. The next game the random pick button chose was, what the heck? Jen's Furry Doll Maker? Okay. Oh my god, it's a dress-up game. I never really played these that much for obvious reasons. Let's see here. Let's start by giving my character a mouth. Right there makes sense. I should be a little off-center just to show a wacky side. Yeah, let's put the muzzle below the mouth. That makes sense. Koala ears, please, and 2 devil tails. Ah, cool, it's Suichi's cap. I think it's about time we covered that up. Nomura character design be like goggles. Right there. Bat wings and angle wings. You know, what are stockings for your hands called exactly? Yeah, eat your heart out, Sonic Forces. I want the Luke at me hair. Wait, no, I want the Bennett Valklane hair. Ponytail. Let's just cover up all our mistakes of a dress and, actually, that doesn't cover up anything at all. What the? Alright, there's my OC. I don't know what I made. Moving on, we have 5-card poker. I mean, it's certainly a poker game, I don't know what you want me to say. When you win a round, you get the option to double down on your earnings, but that's basically all that's here. The face cards being animated is kind of a cool touch, I guess. I can't help but notice that the credits tally in the upper left is not a number, and I wonder if maybe this was attached to some gambling site at some point. You also get a game over even if you win, which I personally choose to interpret as an analogy for gambling as a whole. Next we have Magic Pen 2. Okay, this one is a physics puzzle game, which is definitely one of the more common genres of Flash games. In this one, you need to get this little ball to touch all of the red flags in a stage to win. And you do this by drawing shapes as well as adding pins and hinges to the terrain to kind of manipulate stuff in your favor. I'm gonna be honest, this game is a little too smart for me. I'm typically pretty good at physics puzzles, but this one I could never really get that far in for some reason, and I did play around with it for quite a bit. By the end of my time with it, I was more just jumping around to different levels and playing around with the cool level interactions than I was making a genuine attempt to finish the stages. This game has a really good soundtrack. In fact, it might be my favorite OST out of anything I played today. It's super chill, and I even found myself listening to it a bit after I was done playing it. Maybe at some point I could go back and try the first one, because while I didn't get super far in this, I enjoyed what I played here. Next is South Coast Escape, an Escape the Room game. Interesting. This too is a pretty common genre, but I never really played that many of them growing up. This one takes place outside. Well, mission accomplished, I guess, because I escaped a room, apparently. Actually, the plot of this one is you got lost while traveling said South Coast, and you need to find your way out. Out of what? How do you do this, may I ask? Find a map? Talk to people for directions? No, of course not. Instead, you buy a single cup of coffee for $3 and give it to this creepy man of a newspaper who drives you to the ending? This game is weird. You basically run up and down the street 100 times looking for clues or puzzles until you eventually stumble upon the $3 you need. It's extremely basic, but it's a fun time waster, I guess. Next we have Harry the Hamster 2, The Quest for the Golden Wheel. What a mouthful. There are 5 of these? So this is a top-down adventure game where you travel between hamster tunnels to find obstacles and then items that can help you bypass those obstacles. The game kind of has a world travel vibe with its adventurous music and how each screen is named after a different country. You even have these underwater sections that are named after various lakes and parts of the ocean. That was pretty cool. I don't know why I like that so much. And unfortunately, I'm not really a fan of this game overall, though, which sucks because I like the aesthetic and art style a lot, but it all came down to one thing for me: the controls. You can only move in 4 directions, so you might wonder how that's possible for the game to have back controls. Well, the problem comes in when you try to turn corners. For some reason, Harry never just snaps to a direction like you would expect him to. He instead, slowly slides into place, moving in the direction you actually want him to go, before actually going in that direction. That might not sound that bad, but then you need to keep in mind that maze navigation through these tubes is the gameplay. There's not much else here. It'd be like a Mario platformer where jumping is a pain in the ass. And then they combine this with enemies like these Galarian Linoon looking guys who drain your energy in a game where it's kind of hard to get it back. Oh, and if you lose, you have to start from the very beginning. Yeah, I didn't get too far in this one either. Looking back on Flashpoint, it appears that all 5 of these games have different gameplay styles, which is kind of cool. This is solely judging on the gameplay screens the software gives you, by the way. I didn't actually try them. I'm gonna just assume that those are better, and maybe this is just an experiment that didn't turn out so well. Next is Egg Run 2 on grass. He's not running. Actually, you don't run at all in this game. This is another puzzle game, but here you have to collect these twigs to make a ladder appear, and you do this by flinging your little egg dude around. Okay, this is kind of fun. I'm pretty bad at it, and it is kind of glitchy sometimes, but I enjoyed it enough to play it all the way through. It kind of strikes me as how a 2D golf game would play, and I have a bit of a soft spot for golf. Next we have Spot the Difference Halloween. Not to be confused with Halloween Spot the Difference, a Halloween Spot the Difference, or Creepy Halloween Differences. You know, I've heard that Spot the Difference games and hidden objects games are actually quite common as well, but I never really noticed too many of them growing up. Maybe they were just on sites I didn't use, because I can't imagine Newgrounds being a huge repository for these. This game is exactly what you expect, though. You're given 2 pictures and you have to click on things that are different between them, and you get points for that. The most notable thing to me is, well, is it weird that I kind of like the main theme of the game? Also, if you're wondering why my score is so bad, it's because there was this one BS object in the final stage I couldn't find, so I just click-mashed until I found it. And you lose points whenever you do that, or whenever you misclick. God, these games aren't for me. Starship 11. Kind of like with the Fork game, there are 2 versions of this one, and I'm just going to go ahead and play the more recent one. Oh my god, it's a lunar lander-like. I am awful at these types of games. You know, it is a bit easier than the average one of these, though, since your entire ship doesn't eviscerate from the inside out when a single panel of its landing rod gets nicked. They actually give you a bit of leeway for mistakes with this health bar, which I appreciate a lot. Until they start introducing enemies and movable obstacles into the mix. Any sort of obstacle that isn't a wall one-shots you, which might not sound bad, but it gets really frustrating really quickly. There are some rooms I spent upwards of 10 minutes on because of one enemy or a single thing that just knows exactly how to get in your way. There's this one part where you have to kill 3 of these radars before moving forward, and my god, this one took a while. I eventually quit when I got to this Egyptian area. They introduced these spears that shoot out of the walls and they count as obstacles, so they do one-shot you. Seriously, why even have a health bar at this point? You almost never die from bashing into walls too much. This is a good game, it's just not for me. I'm kind of curious how far I was to the end, though. Next is Spongebob Excludes Squidward. I mean, there he is. He certainly is excluding Squidward. Okay, what is with the weird title? It sounds almost Google translated. For reference, I didn't really watch or even like this show growing up that much. I do know a lot of the characters, though, and their ambitions, mostly through memes, to be honest, but that's gotta count for something, right? So in this one, you do that. This is a puzzle game where you click on SpongeBob, Squidward, or Patrick to change their shape, And the goal is to knock Squidward and only Squidward off the screen, or multiple Squidwards if there are multiple Squidwards. This whole game is jank, everything from the weird physics to how the music for the game is a 10-second loop. But it's easy and inoffensive enough that I guess I can't hate it too much. Ina. This is another escape the room game. However, unlike the last one, I wasn't able to actually finish it. I got to a point where all I had in my inventory was a note to a puzzle I already solved, and a few contraptions I couldn't really do anything further with. It's weird too, because there's only 2 rooms here, at least that I've unlocked so far, so you'd imagine that it wouldn't be that hard to find what to do next through sheer guesswork, but I don't know, man. Yeah, I have no opinions on this one, although I will say I think it's much more likely that I just missed something than it is that the game is bad or too hard or something. Next is Manual. Okay, this one pissed me off a bit. It's an isometric arcade game where you play as this weird-looking guy on a skateboard, and you have to either do a manual or a nose manual as you go over these pink and turquoise paths. The color of the tiles tell you which one you gotta do, and if you don't do it correctly, you blow up. It's a premise that sounds simple, but it's way more frustrating than you'd expect it to be because the timing is really strict, and your character goes so slowly that you get bored and just try to fidget around when you can't do much, which just messes your timing up more later on in the game. They also had these jumps at one point, but I swear, these are borderline impossible. The timing on them is just so strict, and they don't ever give you like a drop shadow or anything to make them easier. My high score was 15. I'm not playing any more of this. Seriously, what is his character design? It looks like he's wearing a wetsuit, goggles, Crocs, and socks. Next is Mole Hammers. It's kind of cute. It's basically a 2-player whack-a-mole game. I really like how the look of the moles' appearances are randomized to a certain degree, and the game throws some fun curveballs at you sometimes. Like these tall ones you have to hit several times. I like it a lot. I especially really like the art style, too. Sesame Street Zoey's Dance Moves. This appears to be an official Sesame Street game. I did not know there were official Sesame Street Flash games. You know, I did watch this show as a kid, but the last time I did, I was like 5, so I don't really remember much about it. In fact, I don't even remember this Zoey character. Maybe she was introduced after I stopped watching. I remember my favorite character was that big mammoth guy whose name was, actually, what was his name? Let me look that up real quick. Ah, yes, Mr. Aloysius Snuffleupagus. Wow, I wonder why I didn't remember that name.
It's me, Zoey, and I'm ready to make up a dance with you.
So this game is about as kid-friendly and inoffensive as you'd expect. You give Zoey an outfit to wear and then build a dance of her using this interface.
Silly willy nilly!
Oh, that's my favorite dance. I want to do that one. And afterwards, she does the dance by stringing together all the selections you picked. It's fine, I guess. Okay, is this the part where I make a Fortnite joke? You know, it's actually, like, fairly well animated for what it is. I really got nothing more to say about this one, though. It's a Sesame Street game. It's what you'd expect. Next is Blocky Xmas by... Oh my god, Bond Games. This is the same guy who made Sugar Sugar. This is a puzzle game where you move a magnetic block around, and when you touch other blocks, your block sticks to it. Then, as this big block mass, you have to maneuver your way into a certain spot in a tree formation. And like with all of Bond's games, it starts with an incredibly simple premise, but gets brutally hard really quickly. At least Hipster Santa is here to give you moral support after you beat a level, and Reindeer of a Mustache? I really like these two characters, I don't know why. This guy's games always have great presentation. They have like really like sleek interfaces and like UIs and stuff. Oh, and you can probably tell by this game's aspect ratio, but there is a mobile version of this game if you want to play it that way. I didn't beat the game, but honestly, can you blame me? This guy's games are brutal. It's a lot of fun though. Ancient Planet. This one I have a lot to say about because I really liked it. It is a tower defense game, another pretty common genre you'd see when Flash was big. In this one, you're given a base, and legions of aliens will try to break into it. To fend them off, you're given a few towers, these gun towers, these energy towers, slowing towers, mining towers, and then later in these buffing towers to make your other towers more powerful. There's also 2 other tower types, but even after beating the game I never unlocked them for some reason. There are also mechanics like being able to give your base guns so it can defend itself when your towers ain't doing the trick, or one-use special moves so you can deal with threats yourself. And destructible objects that you can have your towers focus on for extra money, and maybe even access to advantageous places to build more towers depending on the stage. There's a little bit of meta here in that towers focused on objects won't shoot at enemies, so you have to be strategic about when they try to destroy them. I love the music in this game. Now, I said Magic Pen 2 might have my favorite soundtrack of everything I played today, but this game probably has my favorite sound direction. The OST is a lot more haunting and atmospheric. That's cool and all, but then the game goes above and beyond and pulls a Kingdom Hearts by not only giving every world its own theme, but also its own battle theme that it swaps between whenever enemies are present. One thing I wish was a bit better about this game, though, is I wish the enemy variety was a bit more obvious. All enemies fall into 2 categories. Robots, which take extra damage from gun towers, and these ghost-type aliens, which take extra damage from energy towers. Individual enemies have gimmicks past that, but they aren't really highlighted or exaggerated in a way that makes you use much variance and strategy against them. Most of you who have played a lot of these types of games probably know what I'm talking about here. The idea of enemies that have immunities or special gimmicks that require you to change up your game plan, experiment with new towers, and otherwise just make playthroughs more interesting. By the end, the only strategy I really needed was alternating between gun and energy towers, and a buff or slowing towers in between them. There is a single exception to this, though, and it was in the final level. During one of the final waves of the game, they introduced this giant robot of a crap ton of health. It even almost got through all my defenses before dying, but as it fell and I scrolled down so I can keep an eye on the next wave, I noticed that my health was starting to go down. Scrolling back up, I noticed that the robot was somehow still alive, and I got a game over to it. In fact, it's the only game over I got in the entire playthrough. Doing the level again, I scrolled over the enemy name, and it all made sense at that point. Phoenix. Yeah, you have to kill this thing multiple times to actually beat it. Now, I'm not saying every enemy should have a tough-to-deal gimmick like this, but throwing more in every now and then would have made them a bit more memorable. Like, maybe one per stage and it's treated as like a boss or something. I don't know. Aside from that, God, this game was fantastic. It's definitely my favorite thing I've played in this marathon so far. Comely Room Escape. Who is Comely? As you can probably tell by the name, this is another Escape the Room game. In fact, it's probably the most traditional and by-the-books one I've played in this marathon. I mean, you actually escape a room in this one. Although it's more like a house escape because you have to click between several rooms to find puzzles and clues, but whatever. The interactable puzzle elements kind of feel just pasted onto wherever these background images happen to come from, which looks super jarring, but it makes it easy to tell what you can and cannot interact with at least, which is great, because that's typically a pet peeve of mine in these types of games. Seriously, nothing frustrates me more in a point and click than clicking around randomly, not being able to find something, only to discover that it's something I didn't think was interactable at all. The game isn't that big, but it still ended up taking me about a half hour to beat, which was kind of surprising. It's alright though, I guess. Cargo Bridge 2, which didn't load properly for me, so let's go ahead and play the first Cargo Bridge instead. Oh, that's a nostalgic site right there. Good old Cool Math, the only gaming site that wasn't blocked at my school. Well, that and Damball, which actually, now that I think about it, might be the reason why I got so much practice at Stick Ranger as a kid, which in turn made me confident enough to make it the first game I ever Let's Played. That LP was awful, by the way. It's like over a decade old at this point, which kind of snowballed into the channel you see today, so thanks, Damball. Oh, and if anyone's wondering if Damball games are safe as a result of the Flash extinction, they are. They're made with Java, not Flash, so they're okay. So anyway, well, I've actually played a bit of this one before, although I was pretty bad at it as a kid. It's a bridge construction game where you have to build a bridge so these blue-collar workers can cross it, pick up some cargo, and then carry it back. This game is really smart. Cool Math is a good place for it. It never really feels like it's holding your hand through any one level, which gives you a lot of space for experimentation, and you're going to need it for puzzles like this. It's really fun just to play around and see what works and what doesn't work, and who knows, you might even complete a level the way the devs didn't really intend it to be completed. I feel like most people who grew up with Flash have at least heard of this one, though. It's probably one of the more popular games I'm going to be playing today, and it's as fun as I remember it being, though I still find it kind of hard. Break It. Oh, breakout likes are super fun if done right. Okay, this game is pretty cool. The immediate first thing that really draws me in is how moving the paddle back and forth with your mouse suddenly curves it, and you can actually, do trick shots by aligning it correctly. Control is key in these types of games, and this single mechanic really gives you that feeling. There's also power-ups too, and these range anywhere from near game-breaking to feeling like they were put in deliberately to piss players off. This is honestly my least favorite thing about this game, actually. I wish there was just a little less quality variance in these power-ups, if that makes sense. The worst by far is the one that splits your paddle in half, and it honestly just feels like a troll item. Seriously, it just feels like a cruel joke. I hate this item so much. On the other side of the spectrum, we have this one that lets you shoot bullets from your paddle. Okay, look at this level. Look how long it's taking me. Now look how long it's going to take me the second I collect this power-up. It's pretty OP. In spite of these balancing problems, I actually did finish this game because honestly, it's just a good breakout like. I like the music a lot too, it's fun overall. Chocobo's Snowboard Glide. Oh, this should be fun, I love Final Fantasy. Heck, I even have a Chocobo plush. This is a pseudo 3D snowboarding game where you have to avoid obstacles and make your way down to the end of this course. There's only one mode, it's not endless and nothing about it is randomly generated or anything, so there's not really much replay value to it, but it's pretty fun and the 3D effect is pretty good by Flash standards. I did a few runs of the course and my best time was 66 seconds and 8 milliseconds, a little over a minute. This game's cool. Spongebob Shrink and Sink Golf. Son of a gun, another Spongebob game? So this isn't made with Flash, it's apparently made with something called 3D Via, so I don't know why it's in a Flash collection like this, but it's more games at the end of the day, so I'm complaining. And unlike the last one, this one appears to be officially published by Nickelodeon. Officially published by Nickelodeon! This is a golf game. I have a soft spot for golf games. You know how everyone has that one bad or shovelware series that's just a bit of a guilty pleasure for them? Well, mine is the Tiger Woods series, specifically 04, which is legitimately one of my favorite games of all time. Is it weird that I've always wanted to do a Let's Play of this game? Would people even fucking watch that? I kinda don't like this game, though. It's not really that good. The gameplay is about what you expect for a game like this. You pick a club, you set your power, your angle, account for the wind, or I guess the water current in this game's case since we're underwater. But the whole thing is just kinda janky, which I know was a criticism I used for the last SpongeBob game, but it really is. There's also this one mechanic that really annoyed me, these jellyfish. Scattered throughout the 18 holes, or I guess the 9 holes because the back 9 are just copy-pasted from the front 9, but you do them backwards, which is kind of lazy, but whatever, are these jellyfish that are sort of like power-ups. You hit one, and you notice that they give you points, or -1 for your shot, which is fine, I guess. I mean, but then they introduce these ones which teleport you. These either give you massive shortcuts or completely ruin your score by putting you in a horrible position. Or even in some cases just put you right back at the start. And then there are the jellyfish that I really wish there was a way to differentiate the good jellyfish from the bad jellyfish, because while power-ups and collectibles in a golf game isn't an inherently bad idea, the fact that they can also screw you over so royally just makes me not want to get them and just avoid them altogether. It's not a bad game, but it's not really good either. There's better golf games out there, even free ones. Dino Blitz.
Dino Beast!
This one was really enjoyable. It basically plays exactly like balloons. Not the tower defense balloons, but the classic balloons. People seem to always forget that this franchise didn't actually start as a tower defense series. But in this one, you're a dinosaur shooting eggs out of a cannon instead. You have to hit as many blocks as you can, and each stage has a quota of blocks you need to destroy to continue. The game's got some fun gimmicks and some really upbeat music that makes it kind of hard to get angry even during some of the more frustrating levels. My only real genuine problem with it is that I wish there was a reset button, because if you know you're going to fail a level, the fastest way to try again is to quit back out to the stage select and then manually click over to the level, which gets pretty annoying after a while. Admittedly, I didn't beat this game. I got to the last set of stages, but there was this one that required aim that I think is just a bit too demanding for the physics of this game. I always like the Cat Icarus school of thought when it comes to brutal difficulty, where I'm all for a game expecting perfection from me, but the game better be able to match that perfection in return and not bug out or anything. Because let me tell you, that egg really looked like it touched those blocks sometimes, but it just didn't. And it kind of did this too many times for me to count. It's a good game, just a little too frustrating by the end for me. Another bathroom escape. Oh god, the escape the room games are becoming self-aware, guys. I have nothing to say about this one. Kind of like with Hina, I got stuck pretty quickly, started randomly clicking on stuff, and then in spite of how small the room is, and also like with Hina, I doubt it's the game's fault. I gotta say, something about the atmosphere of this one really bothers me, though. I don't know, it just looks so dirty, you know? Whatever, let's move on. Fantasy Forest Alien Rescue. Another escape the room game / point and click game. You know, I'm starting to get a little suspicious if maybe a lot of these games are based off the same template, or maybe there's some kind of engine that allows you to make them easy or something. Because, I mean, take a look at this. This game and Comely Room Escape share almost identical UIs and even similar sound effects and puzzle structures. If there's one thing I've learned from playing so many RPG Maker games on my channel is that it's not the tools you use, even if their rules are a bit rigid sometimes, it's how you use those tools. And this one is unfortunately not a really good example of that. The plot of this one is you found an alien trapped and you want to help him. And you do so by basically doing the exact same thing you do in all these games, collect items and rub them against other items until you get more items. This one has a lot of these instances of needing to collect X number of something to continue, and it gets a little annoying after a while. I do like the music though, and I don't know where they got these background graphics from, because, let's be real, I doubt they were made specifically for this game, but they look super cool and really sell that Fantasy Forest vibe. I did beat it, but I don't really have much else to say about it. Indonesia Soccer League. Ah yes, because like all gaming YouTubers, I am a huge fan of sports. You know, I actually do have a bit of history with soccer back in high school. I didn't play or anything, but I volunteered for the varsity team at my school, and I learned a lot about the game, how it's run, and I even got to hang out a bit with the cool kids during my time there, because, I mean, heck, you think I was hanging out with them normally? I was too busy playing Stick Ranger and Papa Louie in the back of the class. Is it weird that I kind of like this game? Like, unironically, I think it's pretty fun. It's not too frustrating, even though I was beaten pretty badly, and it has some pretty intuitive controls. These sports games where you have to control a whole team at once, I'm typically not a fan of, but the AI is pretty good, and players were usually around where I wanted them to be when I needed to pass or shoot the ball. There's not really much here I can say about, because at the end of the day, it is just a pretty factory default soccer game, but I really enjoyed the few matches I did. Really, my only problem was that the game would sometimes switch me to a player I didn't want to be switched to. Other than that, though, I really liked it. Tron Legacy. This game appears to be an official Tron game made with Unity? Another non-Flash game. Okay, I guess. God, does anyone remember this movie? I actually saw it in theaters as a kid, but I don't really remember anything about it aside from some really cool visuals and the line, "I fight for the users." It was also a Kingdom Hearts world for some reason. God, I really want to talk about Dream Drop Distance one of these days. That game is really underrated. Alright, before I start, how much do you want to bet that this game is about light cycles? God dang it, the entire game is about light cycles! Okay, Disney. Heck, anyone involved with the Tron IP for that matter. You realize there's more to this franchise than just the light cycles, right? Like, I get it, it's definitely the most iconic part of the series, but it's not even the only game they ever play in those movies. I've always really hated how the series has been handled, because I genuinely think Tron has the potential to be one of the most breathtaking and visually distinct Disney properties, but they never freaking do anything with it aside from just pandering with light cycles. This game is garbage too. All it is a massive field you just drive around in while this factory default movie soundtrack plays. This game is really glitchy too. In fact, I probably had more fun just bashing into walls and seeing how I can screw myself over than I did doing whatever it is you do in this game. There are these energy things you can pick up, which there are 90 of. I also found these warp points, but if you activate them, you just glide in place forever as the music cuts out. Probably a glitch having to do with Flashpoint, to be honest. I'd imagine these would actually take you to different areas if you could still play this on whatever website it was originally came from. God, this game sucks, though. Knight versus Giant. Okay, this one is interesting. The game has a bit of a David versus Goliath story where you play as this teeny tiny knight who's tasked with killing a giant. But you're super weak and need to level up your abilities and attributes, and it's pretty impressive how much you can upgrade and how far you can upgrade them. But then the game kind of falls apart a bit after that. The problem with this game is that it's like 99% money grinding. There's only a handful of enemies in this game aside from the giant, and all of them are either a small slime, a big slime, a small slime of a different color, and a bigger slime of a different color. When I first started this, I kind of expected you to be able to go to like multiple areas, fight mini-bosses, maybe find new permanent abilities that way, but no, you just mindlessly kill slimes for an hour and a half, and that's how long it took me to beat the game, and that's really all that's here. God, and I didn't even fully upgrade my skills. I did fully upgrade my attack, though, and even then I felt very underpowered and like I was missing something, but as far as I'm concerned, I wasn't. By the end, I was just getting so bored with the game that I just ran up to the giant, hit him as many times as I could before he killed me, because as far as I'm concerned, there's like, I couldn't find like a dodge mechanic or something for his like one attack. And then he would kill me, and then I just ran back and did it over again until I just won. I like the idea behind this game, but it's a little too grindy for its own good. Eye of the TARDIS. You know, I'm kind of surprised I'm getting this many official games. This one was published by BBC itself. Also, at this point I should probably mention that I've never actually seen Doctor Who. Yeah, it's a Doctor Who platformer, and a pretty bad one at that. I'm just going to be blunt right from the gate. The problem is just the level design and the really stiff controls. You have to hop around, collect Arton energy crystals, which will open a door at the very end of a stage. This is my least favorite type of platformer, the type where the level design is just sprawling with no real set pieces or moments that make you remember any given stage. The types that are also full of moving platforms that if you miss, you have to wait a while for them to come back. This game has 4 stages in total, and enemies that change from stage to stage. First you fight the Jardons, and then the Sycamores, and then the Cyber Shells, and finally the Dial-Ups. And every time you jump on an enemy, the doctor says, "Sorry, I'm so sorry." I was able to get to the final stage of this one, though I didn't beat it because the level design was just annoying me too much, and I swear I straight up fell through the floor in a couple points. Meh, it ain't great. I swear, why are all these officially endorsed ones always the worst? Puzzle Room Escape 21. There's 21 of them in this specific series? How many can there possibly be? Oh my god! This is the most basic one yet. There are 3 panels on the walls, and when you click on them, they take you to a puzzle. Completing them turns these lights on, and when they're all on, you take a key and you just effing leave. Like, that's the whole game. Also, this soundtrack sounds like something you would hear at a freaking church. The Champions for World Domination. This might be one of my favorite games I played today. Yes, it might look like just another soccer game at a glance, but it is a lot of fun. So, in this one, you start by making your own team, which is pretty cool. I haven't played this game in a while, but I decided to name them after some of my favorite Animal Crossing villagers for some reason. This is a stage-by-stage game where you play a short match against teams around the world, and when you beat a team, you move on to the next stage. The game has a bit of a level-up system where you can take the cash you get from matches and achievements to power up your team, and you're going to need these for some of the later fights. I love the controls in this game. It's only the arrow keys, a pass and shoot key, and they're just super responsive, and I can't recall a single time the player didn't fire the ball exactly where I wanted it to go. I also unlocked this really funny stage where you have a soccer match against a bunch of pirates for some reason. Seriously, if you're gonna make a soccer game, why the heck not do fancy stuff like this? It's super memorable and a lot of fun, even if they did kick my ass pretty hard. I wasn't able to beat this one though. I kept getting stuck at the Columbia stage, but my god, what I played of it was a ton of fun. And then finally, the last game I have for today is The Search for the Dahu. It's a point-and-click game, and actually, just now I'm realizing that I've been using the terms point-and-click and escape the room interchangeably all throughout this video. Meh, whatever, you guys know what I mean. You know, we're actually ending off on a pretty strong note here, because this is actually my favorite one of these types of games that I played today, and it's by a lot. And it's basically because this game has a lot of personality. The plot of this game is you play as a newscaster by the name of Crystal Rose Divine, who traveled to the Alps in search of the Dahu, which is basically a cryptid that's a goat with several legs of different lengths. She explains all this verbatim, which is kind of brilliant given her occupation as a newscaster. The game starts and you click to move to the next screen and... Okay, that's amazing. I love this protagonist because she basically does everything in character, if that makes sense. When she talks to NPCs, for example, she does so as if she's interviewing them, and her pose never changes too, which is kind of hilarious.
Now she says she is part of a large movement that is trying to rename the Eiffel Tower after me.
That is not what I said.
Well, we are running out of time. Thank you and goodbye.
She's also kind of a narcissist too, which is really funny. The puzzles aren't anything too special, but there's some top-notch visual comedy, timing, and voice acting here. And at the end of the day, presentation is pretty important in these types of games, so that does matter a lot to me, at least. It's not even that long either, but for what it is, it's a really good experience. It kind of makes me want to play more games starring her. Like, I can't emphasize this enough. She is really funny, and I really like this character. And that's all of it. When I started this project, I decided that the number of games I was going to land on was 31. I didn't, play one daily for, a month or anything like that number might make you think. It just felt like a solid number that would give me a good sample size without ensuring that this video takes months to make, because my essays always take way longer to make than I expect. Flash was a big part of my childhood growing up, and I really want to do a unique video about them to send them off. I even found a couple new favorites too, and also, because I thought it'd be fun, I made a tier list for all the games I played today. Ancient Planet, The Champions 4, and Search for the Dahu were by far my favorites that I stumbled upon. A-tier games are games that I loved, but they didn't really blow me away. B-tier games are games that are good, but either aren't remarkable or had a couple glaring flaws. C-tier games are games that are okay to bad. And the final tier are games I didn't really have much to say about because, seriously, it's kind of hard to have any strong opinions on, say, a game with a target audience a quarter your age, for example. I hope you folks enjoyed this one though, and as per usual with my big videos, I personally ask you to give the video a like or share or comment if you enjoyed it. These video essays take a long time to make, which really makes that sort of thing help out. I think that'll be it for now though. Thank you all for your time, and I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching.